So today I want to talk about something that's going to be pretty funny. So we're going to talk about the and fall, rise and fall, and then rise of Dynasty Warriors. So Dynasty Warriors, if you do not know, is like the original hack and slash. It is all based off of the Chinese epic Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is a book that's over 1,000 years old, and it's pretty much like the Odyssey or the Iliad, but for China. But the thing that happens is that Romance of the Three Kingdoms is mostly real. Like, a lot of the stuff that happens in this is real, and a lot of it's not. So it's probably like 50-50-ish kind of thing. Well, they eventually made this game, Dynasty Warriors, and you'll see the word 2 right here. So Koei Tecmo, well, Koei at the time, they decided to make a fighting game called Dynasty Warriors. So they made this game. It's pretty much like a Tekken clone, and the game did okayish. It didn't really do good. It did good, but they could tell that there was more there that they really wanted that could really work for them. So they ditched the fighting game, and they eventually came back and they ended up making this game, which is called Dynasty Warriors 2 in the West, or it's called Dynasty Warriors Musou in Japan. So you'll notice that the number count in the West is always one higher than Japan because of that reason. Because we kept the number count from the fighting game, they did a complete revamp and start over from 1. So this game right here follows some core elements of the book, and it only included, I think, like 8 battles or 10 battles, somewhere around there, from this massive 1,000-page book. And 2 actually did fairly decent, but it wasn't the best that they thought. Like, it did just enough to where they could have generated a sequel. Well, they ended up making Dynasty Warriors 3. Oh, before we get to 3. So, what was interesting about this was that this game undersold and is considered a rare game. And everyone thinks it's not a rare game because every Dynasty Warriors game is common to find but this game. So this game isn't worth any money, even though it's a rare game. Fun fact. So after 2 came out, they made 3. So 3 kept a lot of core elements. They redid the battles. They added a little bit more to the fighting system, and they added more characters. So they built upon what they had. And 3 blew up. A lot of people had Dynasty Warriors 3. And 3 was so successful, it sparked a spinoff, which is Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme. And that actually garnered them to make another Dynasty Warriors game, which is Dynasty Warriors 4. We're going to get back to this. So Dynasty Warriors 4 was extremely successful, and that sparked a spinoff also, which became Dynasty Warriors 4 Empires. So now we have Dynasty Warriors, we have Dynasty Warriors Extreme, and Dynasty Warriors Empires all running at the same time. So Koei's eventually making a scheduled to drop games in a pattern. First Dynasty Warriors, then Extreme, then Empires. Constant money. So 4 did very good. Okay. So then they came out with this game, Dynasty Warriors 5, which is considered the cream of the crop by most fans. Dynasty Warriors 5 they added to the roster again. They expanded pretty well. And then they added upon everything. And 5 was a massive success. Sold a lot of games. Okay. And then they did Extreme. And then they did Empires. But this is where the issue came in, is that they started to listen to American and Western critics. And at the time, we're talking about like IGN, G4, we're talking about Game Informer. And I don't know if you've ever really paid attention to Western critics, but they can never be happy. Ever. Doesn't matter what it is. Movies, art, nothing. Their whole job is to criticize, and they'll criticize for every reason under the sun. So they criticized 5 and 4 and 3, talking about they were repetitive, the voice acting was bad, they didn't like the environments, you couldn't climb, you couldn't swim, all this silliness, all this massive silliness. So Koei went back to the board to try to appease the critics because at the time, there's no real internet, so you can't really go to the fans. So they were under the assumption that the critics knew what the fans wanted. Okay? So then they ended up making Dynasty Warriors 6. So Dynasty Warriors 6 was the perfect storm of things going wrong. They revamped the looks of all the characters because every character from all the previous games all look somewhat the same. Like, things changed, but they were all somewhat the same. But 6 was massively different. They chose a lot of European armor for characters, and they added swimming, they added climbing, they did a couple of different things. But these are the mistakes they made. First thing they did was they made it a PlayStation 3 exclusive. Because Japanese companies will always favor Japanese companies no matter what. And lo and behold, not many people wanted to pay $600 for the PlayStation 3 when it first came out. And Dynasty Warriors was a original title that released when the system dropped. And it bombed. It absolutely bombed because they assumed Western audiences wanted this on the PlayStation 3, not accounting for the fact that most Westerners weren't willing to pay for that. So they ended up eventually dropping it on the Xbox 360 about, I think, 2 years later, a year or two later, something like that. Like, it wasn't the same as the PlayStation 3, same time frame. And then 6 did terribly. So terribly that Koei went back to the drawing board and they decided to stop appeasing Western fans and start trying to appease their Japanese fans. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this about otaku culture, but they can be weird. They can be really weird. So they started making games like this. Dynasty Warriors Strike Force, where you can play as kitty people and gods and all kinds of goofiness. And it didn't go well, as you obviously know at this point in the story. And Koei was floundering. Literally one of their star titles was failing. And they were trying to find a way to revitalize it. Well, they found a way to start recouping their money because they struck a deal with Bandai to make these. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 1, 2, and 3 saved the Musou industry for them. And they took the Dynasty Warriors concept but added Gundam. And this actually opened up the collaboration for this with different companies. Like, they did it with One Piece, they did it with Berserk, they did it with Fist of the North Star. Pretty much that collab option opened up a whole floodgate of additional revenue from them. And they kind of sort of not really cared about Dynasty Warriors, kind of sort of. And they ended up making Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8. They ended up making Extremes, they ended up making Empires, but the sales were getting lower and lower and lower. And then they released Dynasty Warriors 9, which was a complete bomb. Complete bomb. No one liked it. They listened to Japanese critics this time, and they did an open world. They added in-game marriages, which makes perfect sense for a war epic. That's why I watched Gladiator, so I can see the marriage part of the aspect of it. Horrible idea. So 9 completely bombed in the West and the East, and they put out a statement saying they're going back to the drawing board again. And this is where things got different. They hired the director for Dynasty Warriors 4 again. They brought back the music from Dynasty Warriors 4, and they opened up dialogue to Western fans of what they wanted in a video game. And then we got this. Dynasty Warriors Origins, which ended up being the best-selling Dynasty Warriors game ever. Ever. They fixed a lot of complaints. One complaint that people had was that they changed the sexual orientation of Zangief. They didn't like how he dressed. They didn't like his claws. He was obviously a homage to Vega from Street Fighter. They didn't like anything about this person. A lot of people didn't like him. Well, they revamped his character. They brought in Dynasty Warriors 4 music. They actually brought in a story. Like, phenomenal. The game is a beast. It is amazing in all kinds of ways. And it's all because Dynasty Warriors 9 flopped. So if it wasn't for 9 falling, we wouldn't have had Origins. So it's like, Koei has this tradition of making great games, listening to advice from people that aren't involved, making terrible games. Making great games, listening to advice from people that aren't involved, and making terrible games. And this game was attacked by culture warriors. And it is insane. but it is one of the best games out there, and I would always recommend it. Definitely play the game and let me know how you feel, or make a comment and say how you like it. Are you a fan of Dynasty Warriors? Are you a fan of the new game, Origins? Let me know. I would love to hear from y'all and your opinions on this.